The Wellness Show, episode 38.
Welcome to The Wellness Show, a podcast on health and wealth. I'm your host, Tyson Bannigan, the founder of the Extraordinary Healing Arts Academy. Join me as we get the latest insight, tips, and strategies from wellness providers, coaches, and successful, heart-centered entrepreneurs, and much, much more. So welcome to The Wellness Show, and I'm very excited to have one of my favorite people because I've been following her for years, and to actually see who she is and meet her in person. It's Cayelin Castell, and she's involved in Shamanistic Astrology, which I've been following for years and recommending to lots of my clients and lots of my listeners. So thank you for showing up on the show. I'm so excited. So let's start by having a bit of idea about how did this happen in your life? How did you come across Shamanistic Astrology?
So, you know how the universe can trick us into things, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yes. So that was basically what happened to me. I was actually, it was Mother's Day weekend in 1990. I got a phone call from a man named Daniel Jamario, who is the founder of this system, the Shamanic Astrology paradigm. And he was inviting me to come to a talk he was giving that afternoon. I was 9 months pregnant with my youngest son. I have 4 children. And so I went. I was like, okay, whatever. He said I didn't really have to know a lot about astrology to understand what he was talking about. And so I went and I was absolutely entranced. I just was like, this is so important and I need to know this for myself. And of course, 2 weeks later, I had my youngest son. So I had actually had Daniel come and give me a reading the next day. And so I just decided that this was what I really need to learn somehow, but I didn't know how because I had a baby. I had 2 twins that were 5. I had a 7-year-old who was about to turn 8. And so I just kind of kept figuring out different ways to stay connected to the material. And actually wound up writing the Shamanic Astrology handbook based on talks that Daniel had given. So I did transcripts and learned a lot that way. And he wasn't really teaching formal classes at that time. So what happened was I asked him to teach me how to read a chart because I knew he had a system, but I couldn't quite figure it out from everything that I had done so far. So he said, oh yeah, sure, I'd be happy to do that. His wife happened to be walking through the room at that moment. And she said, why don't you teach a class? Because you know how dynamic you are in front of a group. And there's a part of me that's going, I've already heard so many of these different pieces before. I just want him to teach me how to read a chart. So that inspired me to take the transcripts that I had been doing for him, thinking he would write his own book, and turn it into a book. And that's basically how it all got started. And as I was finishing up the book, we finished the class, finished up the book, somebody called me and asked me to do a reading for them and wondered how much did I charge? I didn't even know what to say. I was like, really get paid for this? How cool is that?
Yeah,
so
neat.
I was absolutely terrified. I did a lot of research. I really, prepared for that reading. I spent hours preparing for that, and people just kept showing up after that. They recommend, she recommended other people, and they recommended other people, and it was pretty soon I realized this is something I guess I'm doing, and I hadn't really set out to do that. And as that happened, then Daniel decided better teach more formal classes, train people how to work in this system. And so I helped him put all that together. And that's how I wound up being the co-founder of the school, because I wasn't.
You must have been such a godsend for him, though. I mean,
yeah, he was not technical at all. So I did all kinds of things for him. I kept his mailing lists, and I did flyers for him, even though I didn't really know how to do it. I taught myself, and
right.
so on. So
what a perfect match you two have created. That's great.
Yeah. It's been fun, and it was a really great opportunity for me to learn some skills I didn't really have. I just was teaching myself while the kids were in school, and so I was able to create a way of having income in my life, supplementing the income of the family at that time. And then when I got divorced later on, to support myself, which was really great. And I didn't know that I was going to be able to do that. I was kind of scared actually when I left that first marriage, or second marriage actually, because I didn't know that I had actually created enough income to support myself. So it's been amazing. It's been this amazing journey. And it's kind of like each step has led me to the next. And I wasn't really planning any of it. It just kind of happened.
And here you are in the show.
Yes. It led me to you. And
yeah. So tell me about shamanistic astrology. Tell me about the power of this, because it's that power of the way that it comes across, which touches me in my heart and makes me know that this is what I want to pay attention to. So it's different. For me, the other astrology leaves me sort of feeling cold, sort of detached. But this does it. This gives a full body connection to everything in the sky. Like the sky becomes my neighborhood, becomes part of my cosmology. It includes me in everything. It makes me want to get out. I mean, like last night, I said, I'm going to have this interview. I got to look at the sky. And I was up to go to the bathroom, and there was the Big Dipper hanging out on the edge of the mountain and just like popping out of the sky. And I thought, wow, it's so powerful to at least know something about the sky. Anyway, over to you.
Yes. So that is one of the things that is different about shamanic astrology is a lot of astrologers really have no idea what they're looking at when they look at the sky, because that piece was kind of taken out of the whole system. And interestingly, way back when, and I'm trying to remember who it was, that where it actually started to become separated. Astronomy and astrology were one science or one, study together. And then it just kind of got pulled apart, and astrology became less, what's the word I'm looking for? It wasn't very highly.
It became disembodied. It became disembodied from the flow of the universe. Really, it became like a science, like in the head, not in the body.
Right. Well, and interestingly, Galileo was an astrologer. He was brought before the Inquisition because he was supporting the idea that the Earth was not the center of the universe. The Catholic Church didn't like that very much, so he was actually convicted. And but because he was so highly respected as a physicist, an astrologer, an astronomer, and all these different, alchemists and all these different things, they asked him to recant, and he did. So I think that was kind of a time when things really started to become, it's like the people used to have this information. Everyday people used to know what was going on in the sky. And we know that because ancient cultures have left us their standing stone circles, their pyramids, their chambered cairns that were tracking celestial cycles. There's petroglyph sites that also, the sun lights up certain petroglyphs at certain times of the year, so they would know what season it was. And so they were working with this, and they recognized that we inform the mysteries as much as they inform us. They recognized the relationship was so important, and they spent time watching the sky. They didn't have TV like we do now.
Right.
And so that kind of has separated us also, but also when we left tribal cultures and it stopped being something that was people that the masses knew about. And part of this was really about a control program, how to control other people. Because if you take these mysteries away from them, then they don't have that information about how to work with the timing of what's going on and how to help inform the mysteries based on our intention and attention and paying attention to that. So one of the things we do in the Shamanic Astrology Mystery School is we take people out under the sky and teach them how it works, why we're at a turning of an age, something I'll talk about more in a moment, of a turning of an entire 26,000 year cycle, how we can know that by seeing what's going on in the sky, and how much information we can get about our own lives' personal purpose and why we're here, as well as then how we can work with this to help support us as we grow and evolve individually and collectively. So we're trying to bring this back to everybody. That's what the whole purpose of the Shamanic Astrology Mystery School is. So it's really exciting.
Yeah, it is exciting. How did you come across the monthly readings? I mean, the amount of energy you put into those, the amount of know-how, the amount of, and I would think there's guidance in there too. I mean, it's not just the stars, it's you're literally channeling, I think, when you do that. I mean, that's a powerful read. So how did that come about?
That's really interesting. Again, the universe tricking me, because I was involved with a women's community that started in 1995, or for me, it started in 1995. And we were doing a lot of ceremony, and I was always being asked to tell what the timings were for what we were doing. And I was always seeing the synchronicity and the connection between what we were doing and what the timing was. And so that was really exciting for me. And I started writing a little bit for the monthly newsletter that went out to the community. And in those days, it wasn't online. It was like a printed, published piece. But I was writing it, and I started sending it out to my email list, 100 people or however many people I had on the email list in 1995. And so then they started sending it to their people, and they, it just kept getting forwarded on, and people kept asking to be on my list. And before I knew it, I had like 2,500 people wanting to be a part of it. And at that time, this was in 1996 when I started doing this. So 20 years ago. Wow. I was mainly looking at the highlights of the month. But then in 2000, I was invited to be doing something for an internet portal. They wanted daily timing, something that was going on each day. And it was a great idea. This portal was a great idea, but it never got off the ground. And, so I started doing it like as practice before they were supposed to launch. And then, then the launch was delayed. And by the time they completely folded and weren't going online, I had been doing it for a couple of years. So, and then the people that were reading them were loving the daily look at what was going on in the sky. So I kind of was committed to it. So again, got tricked into upping the ante, into doing a look at it daily. So that's what's been going on for the last 20 years. And I've done it every month pretty much since then.
Well, they average 20, 25 pages in length. I mean, they're not short.
They're not. And I actually am cutting back now. And I'm also, because I want to write a book. And because this is like writing a book every month, I haven't had to work on that. And we've been doing a lot of work with the Venus cycle, something the Sumerians were looking at.
And the Mayans, by the way. Yeah, and the Mayans were very much into the Mayans.
And many other cultures too were very much into the Venus cycle. So I started looking at, we've been leading classes and having people do a really embodied experience of the Venus cycle. And we've learned so much from doing that. Now it's time to write a book about that. So I'm cutting back on the celestial timings at this point. I know a lot of people are like, really, you can't? But I'll probably always do a little something, but I'm not necessarily going to do the extent of what I have been doing over the years, because it's time to also bring in some other things that need some attention. And I just don't have time if I keep writing them at the level I've been writing them. Is
there somebody who can step into that?
I would hope so. I would really hope so. And I don't know yet. Nobody's really stepped forward yet, but I'm open to that possibility.
Yeah, I'm thinking, I should have done my homework and kept it up, because maybe I would understand it so I can keep it on going myself, because there is an awful lot to learn there. I mean, it's pretty amazing detail. And I love all your graphs and everything, and the fact that you give, literally charts of what to look for in the sky. And yeah, it's pretty amazing stuff. Plus the lineage, the history, the cultures, cross-cultural, I mean, everything is there. So you're right, you do have a book and then some more. You have literally volume on volumes.
I do.
So
after 20 years of monthly writings, I have so much. I could probably write several books on that.
So how has this changed your life? Odd question.
Totally. Well, obviously, clearly gave me a purpose and something to get excited and passionate about. I absolutely love this information. I've seen how it changes people's lives, to understand why they're here, what timing they're in, because that's really important. And when we know what timing we're in, and we look at these as initiation cycles that happen, then we can work with that in a conscious way. And sometimes, we can go through cycles and our lives fall apart and we feel like we've done something wrong.
Yes.
But if we understand that that's actually the intent, that something new needed to come in, that's so cool. So that's what that's what I love seeing happen for people. So it's, we can use it personally, but we can also use it collectively to understand where we are in the bigger picture of things. So, I mentioned earlier that we're at the turning of a 26,000-year cycle.
Yeah,
And
before we jump into that, I have a sense that, I don't know where this is coming from, but I have a sense that when you talk about doing it in a group, before we go planetary-wise, I get a sense that you really love working with small groups. Like the Venus one you're talking about, I get a sense that that is one of the most passionate parts of the work that you're doing, is doing that more deep dive with a small collective of people. Am I right?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because the way that it's evolved is that we're doing it online. And we actually have, in our current Venus class, we have 100 people
Wow.
participating. Yeah. And we have a Facebook group, and people post their insights and what's going on for them and so on, in terms of, each stage of the Venus cycle and what's happening. And so it's been really tremendous in terms of the response that we've had and how much people love the fact that it's like coming together in a collective to do ceremony and to honor the timing, especially around Venus, because this is a cycle that we can have such a close, intimate relationship with. Like, you can really see her in the sky. She's the brightest thing besides sun and the moon.
Yeah, and I was
So she's the brightest.
I mean, she is the divine feminine. I mean, she's Isis, and she's, all through the ages, she's the most powerful one, and mostly the occult one too, that most people don't understand and vilified in many, many different ways. Certainly, she was the powerful connection for the Mayan through the Venus cycle to the Palladians. So she's historically been, Knights Templar. She was key to them as well. I mean, over and over and over again. So out of curiosity, is there both male and female in the group?
Yes, absolutely. We do
Great.
have both. So everybody goes through a Venus cycle return every 8 years. Now, Venus returns to its original position once a year, but it's not always near the birthday.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also not in the same cycle that you were born in. So there are 5 cycles that happen every 8 years.
Wow.
So 5 times Venus rises as a morning star in a different sign, in a different part of the sky, every 8 years. And on the 8th year, returns back to a starting point. So if somebody is turning 8, 16, 24, 32, 40, 48, 56, 64, 72, 80, 88, 96,
Well, that was
then
great. Well done.
Thank you. I practiced that.
I bet you did.
Anyway, so if they're turning a multiple of 8 in a certain time period, they'll be in a Venus return. So, for example, if anyone's turning that age between August 17th or 22nd, August 22nd of 2016 to March 30th of 2017, they're in a Venus return. And so then it's really helpful for them to go through this cycle as it was intended. The Sumerians and the Babylonians actually reenacted the Venus cycle in a community every 8 years when Venus rose as a morning star near the spring equinox. And so what we're doing here is like reenacting that, but we're doing it in current time, online, working with the story that they came up with around it and how she goes through 7 gates that connect to the 7 chakras and goes into the underworld and dies and then is reborn and goes back through the 7 gates. So on the way down, she's releasing her, things that are connected to those chakras, vestments that symbolize those chakras. And on the way up, she's reclaiming them. So there's a whole story that we work with.
Sounds like Persephone. Sounds like the Persephone in the underworld and the rebirth and all of that, right?
Right. The difference is that Persephone was abducted, so she didn't have a choice.
That's true.
Whereas Inanna or Ishtar, depending on whether it's Sumerian or Babylonian, chose to go. Chose to take the chose to go. So there's a difference there. So we're choosing to go. We're not being forced into the underworld.
Well, I like that. It's much better. I mean, you can see that the cultural aspect in that too, about how that is interpreted, right? And the patriarchal ones, literally have no choice, and the other you do. Anyway,
yes,
it sounds like something extremely exciting. So do you open this up periodically, or do you?
Yes, in fact, we're opening it up now because Venus is now in the underworld and she's going to begin her ascent So we'll be starting a new class at the end of July for the ascent process. And a lot of the people that are in the current class will be in the ascent process, but new people can join in and we kind of catch them up.
Right.
We give them the sort of crash course to catch them up to where we are. And as you can see behind me, I've got Sekhmet here.
Yeah.
And so this particular Venus cycle is very much connected to the lion-headed goddess. It's Leo, the overtone is Leo, the energy that's being worked with the whole entire 19 months is Leo. And so we've been working a lot with Sekhmet as a solar goddess. And realizing that the divine feminine has a solar aspect as well as a lunar aspect. The divine masculine, the same story, but in patriarchal culture, women have been relegated only to the lunar expression of the feminine, and men have been relegated only to the solar expression of the masculine. So it's like, how are we bringing that back together, that understanding that it's both, it's not either or one or the other. And so we've been working with that as well. It's really exciting.
So the Venus then does bring the stellar part back in with the lunar, so you can see it in the sky, both in the moon cycle and in the stellar cycle as well.
Right. So exactly. So when Venus is passing through the gates, literally that part of the story is described when Venus is conjunct the moon.
Okay.
And in the morning sky, it's the waning moon, and in the evening sky, it's the waxing moon. But right now, she's close to the sun, so she can't be seen. So she's not either the morning or evening sky. So when that happens, she's with the sun. So there's, so her journey is that was what the ancients saw as when she was in the underworld, when she was in the process of death and rebirth.
Or sort of like the Isis, right? Not to be seen, right? She can't stand in her glory.
Yeah. So, well, we all need to go through death and rebirth at different times in our life. And so Venus reminds us about that, and that it's not a bad thing. It's actually about empowerment. So it's letting go of everything that doesn't empower us and that disempowers us or keeps us small or keeps us, in fear or whatever that's about, and really working with that. So that's one of the gifts of working with the cycle, the story, doing ceremony each step of the way. It takes 19 months. It's a 19-month journey.
Wow.
To really work with an entire Venus cycle. And it's really empowering the last 2 cycles aren't even my own. And I have found them to be so transformative to work with them. And many people in our class were in the first one we did that started in 2014. And they loved it so much. They said, you are going to do the rest of them, right? So here we are doing the next one. We probably will be doing, there'll be 3 more after this one before we come back to a start point. Yeah. And we may continue on. I don't know. We'll just see how it goes. But we definitely have a plan to do all of the different expressions of the feminine that are being played out on the stage of our psyche in the collective at this time of the feminine. And, Leo is one of them. Capricorn is one of them. Aries. It was Scorpio, it's shifting to Libra, and then and Gemini. So these are not typical expressions of the feminine.
Right.
Ones that, the Libra will be more, but they're more fierce aspects of the feminine.
Yeah,
which
like
is
the Scorpio, Libra, it can be quite fearful, yeah. I'm very excited. So what about the moon cycle? You don't do that separate? I'm assuming you do that as part of the Venus? Or do you have teachings around the moon cycle as well?
Well, so the moon cycle is something that ancient peoples have worked with forever, and that hasn't really been lost. But what the piece has been lost is our connection to the how Venus, when Venus is with the moon, how that represents a phase of the cycle, her cycle. It's an important phase of her cycle. But the new moons and full moons and, other phases of the moon, there's been ceremonies. In fact, here we are, and as we're recording this, on the well-tamed new moon. Yeah. And so it means this new moon is in Taurus. And Taurus is an archetype that has been highly misunderstood. This is something else that's unique about shamanic astrology, is we look at the signs as archetypes, and there's an essence to each archetype, but there's then also the collective perception of the archetypes. And Taurus has been seen as lazy and stubborn and, doesn't have a lot of nice things that are said about it. But the way that we would look at it is to say its essence is really about pleasure, about enjoyment, about how do we really savor the experience of life and appreciate being embodied, being, able to have this experience, which is, a lot of people on a spiritual path are like, let's get up and out. We got to get out of here. No, this is a fallen realm. It's not a good place to be.
Yeah, we're out of here. Pick me up. Take me home. Yeah. Yeah. The whole idea of full body enlightenment is sort of a new concept. Hey, you're at the right place. You're supposed to do this while you're in the body, not get out of here. But for a lot of us, the feeling is just get me out of here. So, yeah, so we're on a very powerful time. Sorry? Go ahead.
I said I have had that feeling at different times in my life.
You have.
Of wanting to get out of here. But I'm learning how to really appreciate and enjoy and savor the experience of life, because it's a precious gift we've been given.
Absolutely.
And we see it that way and have gratitude for it, even during the challenging times. It's a completely different experience. So.
Yeah, I've been told through the Tao that if we knew how many souls are waiting on the other side to have the opportunity to reincarnate, we'd be far more appreciative of the fact that we've actually shown up and have this opportunity.
Right. Yes, and that we have been given a gift that not everybody gets.
We earned the right to be here, right? It doesn't come lately. Yeah.
Right, exactly.
So the turning of the ages, we're at a really, well, numerologically, we're at a nice, interesting point. And also in the turning of the ages, and of course, and we're at Beltane. So we have a whole bunch of things coinciding in this year. So go for it. Give us a bit of an idea of what's happening here.
Right. So I'm sure everyone's familiar with solstices and equinoxes. They represent the seasonal cycle. So at the winter solstice, it's the longest night and the shortest day. At the summer solstice, it's the longest day and the shortest night. And then we have the equinoxes where we have the balance of day and night. And they happen 4 times a year. The Celts were also looking at the cross-quarter points, which we're in the Beltane time right now, which is the cross-quarter or the halfway point between the spring equinox and the summer solstice for those of us in the northern hemisphere. So what happens is that the sun over time is moving 1 degree every 72 years through the constellations. So the seasons are shifting through the constellational patterns, and it takes 25,980 years, I think, some number like that. We just rounded up to 26,000 years for the sun to come back to a starting point, to go through all of the different constellations and all the different seasons. And right now, the sun at the winter solstice is on the galactic cross. And what I mean by that is where the plane of our solar system, or the ecliptic, the path the planets follow, and the plane of our galaxy intersect and form a cross in the sky. And the sun is right on that cross at the solstice time, on both solstices, but one's at the galactic center between the Scorpion and the Archer constellations, and then the other is between the Bull and the Twins, and it's at the galactic edge, so it's where we look out beyond our galaxy. And then the one at the center is where we're looking towards the center of our galaxy. And so this can only happen in this configuration once every 26,000 years, and that's happening now, and from at least 1962 to 2034. And that's a 72-year window, 1 degree every 72 years. The center point was in May of 1998, as computed by a astronomer named John Muse. Was computed at the time, the exact center point of that sun being on the galactic cross. So we're in a tremendously important time, and it's bigger than the movement from the age of, most people have heard this, the age of Pisces to the age of Aquarius. That's like a month change. That's like a change. You lift the calendar to the next month. Right. This is a whole entire galactic year change. Yeah, so it's like a new year point. It's way bigger than shifting from Pisces to Aquarius. And that's also based on the name of the constellations, not the signs, because they're looking at the spring equinox, which is currently under the circlet of the fish. That's a 0 Aries point. So the signs are seasonal, And the constellations are the backdrop that the signs move through. And people get very confused because they have the same names. So in shamanic astrology, we call them a different name. We don't say Pisces, we say the fish. We don't say Aquarius, we say the water bearer.
Right.
You know, because it helps reduce the confusion. Yeah. So that's the biggest cycle that's happening right now, and we have front row seats. We're really lucky to be here at this time.
Not only that, we're on the stage. We're the main actors too.
Right. Exactly, and we're dreaming up the next 26,000 years. So we're at the seed point and dreaming into this new cycle. We're also at the ending of the previous cycle, so it's sort of in that in between ending and beginning time. And so it's a very unusual time to be, and that's why things seem so speeded up. And, we're just going through rapid evolution at this time because of that, because of what's happening in the greater collective. So it's pretty exciting. And the Mayans were also tracking this 26,000 year cycle, and they did it in two ways. One was looking at what I just talked about, and the other was looking at when the sun would be conjunct the Pleiades at a zenith point over the pyramid of Kukulkan or over the Teotihuacan, these pyramids, and the zenith point means there's no shadows cast at noon that day. So it's because it's directly overhead. It's straight overhead. It's not at an angle, any kind of an angle. And they had zenith tubes that would track this. So what's happening now is the sun is conjunct the Pleiades, something that can only happen every 26,000 years on these zenith days in these certain latitudes happening on the planet. So that lets us know that we really are at the end and beginning of a 26,000 year cycle, as in addition to the knowing where the equinox sun and the solstice suns are rising at this time.
So can you interpret that then now you're looking in the sky and you see all this happening? What does that mean in our inner astrology, in the inner part of who we be? I mean, one of the things you hinted at is we're literally dreaming or creating a next 26,000 year cycle. And when you think of that, that's almost overwhelming even to get your head around that, if we do create the world we live in, we're literally the gods of the new 26,000 year cycle. And we have some responsibility that it might be a good idea that we wake up to.
Yes, absolutely. I love that you said that. Is so important because, and many of the indigenous tribes have been telling us we need a new dream. We need a new way of dreaming into our world. John Perkins wrote a book, The World is As You Dream It, and the shamans in Ecuador were saying basically that, bring Western people to us so that we can train them so that they can dream a new dream, because what we've been dreaming as a collective has been destroying the planet, and it's time for us now to become awake and conscious to what is it that we're dreaming into. Because we're literally dreaming into a new 26,000 year cycle. And we hope that there's an earth for it to go forth into the next 26,000 years. And so if we don't wake up and start paying attention and taking responsibility for what we're dreaming into, then, it may be too late. Who knows? I am an eternal optimist, so I think we're gonna see this through. But the people are waking up now and are becoming more conscious and aware and are willing to make changes in their lifestyle and the way they're living and to become more responsible, self-responsible for what they're creating in their reality. And that's really what we need to pay attention to in a personal sense. Like, we can't necessarily go out and change the entire world. So what we can do is change our reality. We can dream into our reality. We can become responsible. We can become aware. And through that awareness, transform ourselves. And through that transformation, then we are able to activate more love and, appreciation and gratitude and the things that will help to create a new world that we really want to live in.
I love that. That's a wonderful way of stating it. So have you ever had the thought, this just came in, it's a strange thought. Have you ever thought when you look into the night sky that, of all the ancestors and all the shamans and the shamans of the shamans that have done the same, and that you're connected through the stars to that whole lineage of all those that have done this and know this and, have birthed civilizations and gone through ascension process, through ages. Like we're not the first that are doing this. The stars have been there for God knows,
Right.
right? And how we,
Right. You know, how many 26,000 year cycles have there been before this one?
yeah,
That have
exactly.
come and gone.
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah, so absolutely. And there's been times when there was a lot more consciousness and awareness. People were not, hadn't been, there wasn't so much control that had been, you know, put out there. So this is what we're having to figure out how to become aware of and transform within ourselves, is to, how are we going to be responsible? How are we going to show up and be a part of this? And that there are ancient traditions that can help us with that, but we can also be creating new ways of doing it. And one of the things we often say in shamanic astrology is that just going out and being witness to the sky, you know, when there's planetary conjunctions, when the moon is full, when the moon is new, that new crescent moon, watching it track through the sky, that has a lot of information for us. And then we can, and then that can help us to be, how do we want to inform what's also going on? Because it's a two-way street, you know, it's a two-way thing that's happening above and below and above. They're not separate. They're actually one and the same thing.
Yeah,
so that's
thank you for reminding people to just go out and be in the sky. It's not something you have to figure out. It's not something you have to calculate or know every star in the sky. You just have to be there and be still, and you'll be downloaded with all the energy that's in your sky above you. I mean, that's the wisdom of the ancients. It wasn't necessarily they had to figure it all out. So when you do look at
Yes, that's what they did.
Sorry? Go for it.
That's what they did.
Yeah,
they
that's what they did.
Out under the sky. And then they got a lot of information doing that. So yeah.
Yeah, so let's do that. So don't get caught up totally in Cayelin's monthly. I do want you to, have that opportunity while she's still doing it. If you don't understand everything that she's telling you, which is absolutely profound, at the very least, go enjoy the night sky. Breathe it in, be with it. Be gentle in the storm of the night and love yourself under the sky, because you'll learn so many things new about yourself and new about us as a new emerging planet of being. So, Caitlin, we're near the end of the time together, and as you can see, I want to go on forever and ever and ever, just like the stars.
I'll come back to
that. I can always bring you back. But tell me, how do people get hold of you and do all these wonderful things that they can do with you?
Well, they can go to my website and Cayelincastell.com, but if you don't know how to spell that, you can also go to celestialtimings.com. It'll take you to the exact same place. On the front page, there's a way to get to the monthly timings. Very easy, just a link you can just click right on to get there. So that's easy to get to. If you want to study shamanic astrology, then go to the shamanicastrology.com. That's the site for the Shamanic Astrology Mystery School. We have online classes that are easy to take these days. Used to be you had to do them in person, but now we're coming into the 21st century with our technology. So there's lots of options and opportunities there. You can become a member of the school. And just begin to study. You can get the Shamanic Astrology Handbook. It's a great place to start. Pretty basic, it's not too technical. So it's a great way to start learning if you want to see what it is that we're doing with this information. And I think those are the main ways to do that.
All right. So now at this turning of this age and at this time of the Beltane, what are the little last pearls of wisdom you'd like to leave everybody with?
Well, I would hope that everyone would take time, especially today now at this time, to just really look at what is it that you can, what is it that brings you the greatest amount of joy in your life, and how can you increase that? How can you savor that more? How can you appreciate that more? How can you live that more in your body? So that's, and probably tomorrow, I'm guessing tomorrow or the next day, you'll see that tiny crescent moon in the sky, and just tune in and see what it has to say to you.
Wow. Okay. Thank you ever so much. It's been a pleasure. We're going to have you back, and maybe that's what we're going to have to do. We're going to maybe have to do a regular cross-quarter show or something like that, just to help people stay in touch with who you are and what you're doing. So thank you ever so much for showing up. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. I had a great fun, and I'm looking forward to coming back.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
For quality online wellness products, courses, and services, visit our sponsors, theWellnessStore.ca, and the Extraordinary Healing Arts Academy located at thewellnessacademy.ca. To stay in touch, visit us at thewellnessshow.ca. And until next time, be healthy, wealthy, and wise.